One of the key social issues that Demos is concerned about is social mobility. The educational attainment gap between young people from lower socioeconomic backgrounds, those who are eligible for free school meals, and young people from middle or higher socioeconomic backgrounds. In particular, we've been looking at the role of social and emotional learning, otherwise known as character skills and attributes like self-regulation, the ability to stick to a task, to have grit and resilience in the face of setbacks. There's a lot of focus on these attributes at the moment, and there's a growing body of research in the US and the UK that having these attributes and skills can boost your grades, can lead to having higher grades, but it also helps to develop skills that are particularly important for young people entering the 21st century labor market. What's more is that this research is showing that these skills and attributes are something that you can develop through interventions delivered in schools or delivered by youth charities. And one particularly interesting avenue of research in terms of developing these skills like grit and resilience is the concept of growth mindset developed by Stanford psychologist Karl Lokko. In terms of embedding growth mindset into schools and into the home, language is extremely important. The sorts of language that you use with young people, praising effort and work as opposed to identity level praise or praise that tries to reinforce the idea of natural abilities or natural aptitudes. But although that might sound very simple, it's actually what we found from our interviews is extremely difficult.
The reason we wanted to support this research with Demos is not only to test the existing evidence and really look at, is growth mindset a worthy goal in itself? Is it something that really can be changed? But more importantly for us is, what do we need to do next? How can we help support the innovative ideas and interventions that can really address some of the root causes of why we don't all have a growth mindset already?
We did a comprehensive evidence review of research from the US by Karl Lokko and others, as well as research in the UK, to see just how robust was the research. What was it saying in terms of the link between having a growth mindset and positive outcomes in education or later in life? And what was it saying in terms of the sorts of interventions that would be most effective?
So over the last 2 decades, growth mindset ideas have really grown. Not only has the scholarship grown, not only has the evidence base grown, but we've started to see it be implemented in schools, in businesses and in organisations. So the evidence for growth mindsets is really compelling. The evidence has a long history stretching back into motivational and behavioural sciences all the way back to the 1960s. But in the last 20 or 30 years, it's got much stronger. And then in the last 10 years, we've seen the evidence base grow substantially. Sample sizes in these studies also grow substantially, and the studies themselves becoming much more robust. We've seen research into the cognitive development of very young children through to growth mindsets as it applies to kids in secondary and primary education, in university, and even to people working in business and in sports teams and a whole range of other areas. And then in the last 10 years, we've seen the evidence base grow substantially. Sample sizes in these studies also grow substantially, and the studies themselves becoming much more robust. So for example, forthcoming research by Karl Lokko and her colleagues from Chile is showing that growth mindsets has perhaps an even bigger impact than we thought it did before. So they're working with a sample size of nearly 170,000 10th grade students. That's all the 10th grade students in Chile. What they found is that mindset has as big an impact on the educational outcomes for a child as socioeconomic status.
We also identified people to interview who, on the one hand, exemplified growth mindset in their lives and their work. So business leaders like Richard Branson and Richard Reed of Innocent Smoothies, sports athletes like Ade Adepitan, the Paralympic basketball champion, explorers like Justin Packshaw, as well as intrepid community activists like Pastor Mimi. We wanted to see to what extent, what kind of motivated them, and how did growth mindset play out in their lives and in the setbacks that they faced? How did they overcome those setbacks? We also interviewed schools and charities, frontline workers with young people who embed growth mindset in the work that they do and the programs that they deliver, either explicitly or implicitly. We wanted to understand, what does it look like for growth mindset principles to be embedded in the work that these organizations do? And what are some of the key challenges that they face in delivering a growth mindset to young people?
I had a dream, a passion to become an international wheelchair basketball player. I think I was cut 5 times from the national team, from the Paralympic squad. At one point, I think after the 5th occasion, I quit because I just thought I wasn't going to make it. What I've learned is just work on improving day to day. If I can be the best that I can be, if I can be the best basketball player, you know, improving every aspect, where would that get me? And that excited me. And that's all I thought of. Forget about all the other stuff. It was just about my improvement. What I loved about sport is it gives you clear statistical evidence of improvement every day. You can be a better person each day through sport to support a growth mindset in young people. I think you need to create an environment where everybody is not afraid of failure, where they're not afraid of making mistakes. You need to deal with failure and you need to deal with setbacks in order to move forward. You make a mistake, learn the reason why you made that mistake, and then improve on that.
I'm sort of very interested in lessons that are learnt in those sort of extreme environments. You can sort of look at a route and you start climbing that route and then find that you didn't quite get it right, or actually when you're in situ in the pit, it's not. So you can debate about what you're going to do, but the reality is you know what you have to do, which is to go all the way back down and start again. You either say to yourself, okay, well that's it, I scared myself shitless and I don't want to do that again, or you say, well, let's give it another go. And ultimately, if you are tenacious, if you are persistent, you will get to the top of that mountain.
The biggest thing that we do at the school is to encourage children, when they make a mistake or they do something wrong, instead of saying, oh, I've done this wrong, can I start again? Then we think about the language that we use with them. So we'll say, you know, how did you make a mistake? What can you learn from that mistake? And encourage them to go back and rethink the process and then to redraft it and to improve it.
In Year 8, we've actually brought in a specific unit about growth mindset, the kind of malleability of intelligence and the willingness to learn from your mistakes. And the reason we did it in Year 8, we think it's a good time. You know, the excitement of starting secondary school is gone and sometimes heads go down.
Turning the theory into practice in all areas of your life is amazing if you can do it, but you can't just think, oh, great, I've got a growth mindset. Yeah, I've got that. It's every single day you have to think, okay, sort of banish that can't do thought and become this can do person, or what can I do to make that better?
To me, growth mindset means it's kind of not really accepting defeat or failure. It's about being a lot more, I guess, adaptable, open to feedback and open to realising that, okay, I might not have it, but I don't have it yet. And it's the ability to kind of be resilient and be like able to persevere. Most importantly, from my perspective, having worked in a school for 2 years, is to instill that in young people, so that I think it's really easy to be like, oh, I failed. Okay, I don't need to try anymore. To me, growth mindset means to keep on trying until you've got it.
One of the things that can be very unhelpful to a growth mindset is setting unrealistic goals that actually harm your aims and projects in other parts of your life. It is obvious that you should praise specific hard work rather than giving vague identity level praise. And it is obvious that you should encourage people to see failure as feedback rather than the end of the story. But you need to remember to do that always and specifically, and make sure that you're checking yourself about whether or not you're using the right kind of terminology.
I put a lot of my own mindset down to how my parents brought me up. And I think in disadvantaged families, sometimes the parents don't have the time to put that into their children. They don't have the money sometimes, or sometimes they don't have it themselves. So part of the kind of problems of social mobility is that parents were brought up in schools where they weren't given that. So then the parents don't give it to their children. So then their children, they become parents, they don't give it to their children. So you need to bring other people into those children's lives that can show them a different approach.
You don't have to be brilliant at everything, but just to do the best you can. That was the great message, and that for me is you know, really opened up some doors for me. Really simple things. They were the things that were the most effective. Talking to your children. You think you do that. You think that's what you're doing all the time, but it's not. It's how you talk to them back. You know, it was and started implementing some of the things that were, you know, being discussed. It was having a big impact on my son. You know, within, I'd say, 3 months, I was noticing quite a difference at home. You know, he was attending school, going every day. And it started up, you know, just an opportunity to talk with the kids, which I hadn't done properly in a way that was helpful to my children at the time. You know, I kind of barked orders, or you know, there wasn't a lot of dialogue going on, but it opened up these opportunities for dialogue, which was, you know, amazing.
So the only thing I could do was just open my home and invite them to come, and I'll cook for them. So this is how it all started.
Ended up living with her for about 4, maybe even 5 years. You know, and our house became like an informal therapeutic community gang rehabilitation centre for me and a few others, you know, including her son that was also heavily involved.
If you had someone that was growing up in Chelsea, mindset is different from a boy that is growing up in Mansfield or in a hood. Environment has a biggest part in how people grow up. To be able to help them, I had to change the mindset. It was the mindset that was, and with young people, it's always the mindset. It's what their values and what was important to them. You have to start growing up, and you have to start making decisions. Even if you make mistakes, you will grow and you will learn.
I think it's very important now. I think we need, you know, we need people to take big, bold, brave decisions, and you know, occasionally they're going to fall flat on their face, occasionally they'll succeed. I think it's important that applies in companies, people who are looking after people, that it would be nice if that could apply to more teachers, looking for the best in their students. Ultimately, I think people will learn, you know, will learn from the times that, you know, that things don't work out for them. They can be the best lessons in their life, and they can, you know, try again until they overcome whatever it is that they're trying to do.
I would love to think of Innocent as a company that is stuffed full of people with a growth mindset. We will always back the person who takes the initiative, even if that initiative completely flunks. We will back that person 100 times out of 100 times, rather than back the person that didn't have a go in the first place. This thing about failure, it's temporary, it's not personal, it's imagined, it's not really real, it's just things that you're telling yourself inside your head. The great news is you can choose to tell yourself something different. Just tell yourself, okay, that didn't work out, why not? Oh right, now I understand. Bank that little bit of learning onto the next one.